In the realm of spiritual teachings, silence has always held a profound place. Silence, often misunderstood as mere absence of sound, is an active and transformative force in many traditions, especially in Buddhism. It's not just about keeping quiet or avoiding words. Silence, when practiced mindfully, becomes a gateway to deeper understanding, compassion, and growth. Today, we will journey together through 5 crucial situations where the practice of silence, guided by Buddhist principles, can lead to profound inner peace and transformation. Silence in Buddhism is much more than refraining from speaking. It is about creating space in the mind, heart, and spirit. It is about allowing wisdom to arise naturally, undisturbed by the noise of thoughts, emotions, and external distractions. Silence is a teacher in its own right. It teaches us patience, mindfulness, and the importance of non-attachment to ego. It's in this stillness that we often find the most clarity, where the noise of life fades, and what remains is the raw, present reality of the moment. This is why silence plays such a crucial role in Buddhist practice. From silent meditation sessions to vows of silence taken by monks, the tradition emphasizes the power of quiet reflection. Silence in these moments is not empty. Instead, it is filled with awareness, presence, and the subtle workings of the mind. As we explore these 5 situations where silence can be your most powerful ally, we will see how it can transform anger into understanding, conflict into compassion, and suffering into wisdom. Anger is a natural emotion that arises in all of us. In Buddhist teachings, anger is often seen as one of the 3 poisons of the mind, alongside ignorance and attachment. Anger clouds our perception and judgment, leading us to react in ways that are harmful not only to others but also to ourselves. When anger flares up, it often feels like a fire inside, a rush of heat, an urge to lash out, to speak without thinking. Words spoken in anger can be sharp like daggers, leaving wounds that may take a long time to heal. But what if, in the heat of anger, we chose silence? What if, instead of giving voice to our rage, we paused, allowing ourselves a moment of reflection? In Buddhism, this practice of choosing silence in moments of anger is a form of mindfulness. Silence gives us space. It creates a pause between the stimulus, the thing that made us angry, and our response. This pause is crucial because it allows us to observe the emotion without immediately reacting to it. We can acknowledge the anger without being consumed by it. When we choose silence in these moments, we're not suppressing our feelings. Instead, we are giving ourselves the opportunity to see them clearly, to understand their root causes. Often, anger arises from a place of ego. Our sense of self has been threatened, or our expectations have not been met. By staying silent, we create the space to investigate these deeper truths. We can ask ourselves, why am I really angry? What expectation or belief is being challenged here? Is this anger justified, or is it coming from a place of misunderstanding? Furthermore, silence when angry is an act of compassion both for ourselves and for others. It prevents us from saying things we might regret, things that could cause harm. It allows us to cool down, to reflect, and to choose our words more mindfully. In doing so, we not only protect our relationships, but we also protect our own peace of mind. As the Buddhist teachings remind us, anger burns like a fire within us, and holding on to it only causes us suffering. Silence, in these moments, can be the first step toward extinguishing that fire. I once knew someone who practiced this concept deeply. A close friend of mine had a temper that could flare up quickly. Over the years, however, through his meditation practice, he learned to use silence as a tool to manage his anger. Whenever he felt the heat of anger rising, he would excuse himself, go for a walk, and remain silent until he felt calm again. This practice not only improved his relationships, but it also allowed him to cultivate a deeper sense of peace within himself. Instead of letting anger control him, he learned to control his response to it, and in that silence, he found freedom. Gossip is one of the most pervasive forms of harmful speech. It can seem harmless at times, a casual comment here, a bit of speculation there, but gossip has a way of spreading negativity, of creating misunderstandings and perpetuating unkindness. In Buddhism, right speech is one of the key components of the Noble Eightfold Path, the ethical guidelines that lead to enlightenment. Right speech means speaking truthfully, kindly, and with the intention of promoting harmony and understanding. But what about when we are in situations where gossip arises around us? When the conversation turns to discussing someone else, and we are tempted to join in? This is where silence becomes a powerful practice. In the face of gossip, silence is an act of integrity. It is a way of refraining from contributing to harmful speech. By choosing not to speak, we prevent ourselves from adding to the cycle of negativity. Silence, in this context, is not about passivity. It is an active choice to protect our own minds from becoming involved in judgment and unkindness. Gossip often thrives on the need for connection, for feeling included in a group. But true connection does not come from tearing others down. Silence in these moments allows us to rise above the temptation to bond over negativity and instead foster an environment of compassion and understanding. Choosing silence also allows us to reflect on why we are drawn to gossip in the first place. What is it about discussing someone else's life that feels so appealing? Often, it comes from a place of insecurity or a desire to distract ourselves from our own lives. By remaining silent, we can turn inward and examine these motivations, learning more about ourselves in the process. There's a well-known story about Buddhist monks who take vows of silence for extended periods of time. One of the reasons for this practice is to cultivate mindfulness in speech. By not speaking, the monks are able to observe their thoughts and motivations more clearly. They come to realize just how much of their mental energy is spent on trivial matters, on judgments, and on unkind thoughts about others. This silence allows them to purify their minds, to cultivate compassion, and to practice right speech more effectively when they do speak. In a similar way, we can use silence in our own lives to become more mindful of our words. When gossip arises, we can choose to remain quiet, allowing the conversation to pass without our participation. This not only protects our own peace of mind, but also helps to create a more harmonious and compassionate environment. Conflict is an inevitable part of life. Whether it's a disagreement with a loved one, a colleague, or even a stranger, we all experience moments of tension and disagreement. In these moments, our first instinct is often to defend ourselves, to speak up and argue our point of view. But what if, instead of immediately reacting, we chose silence? In Buddhist teachings, silence during conflict is a way to practice mindfulness and compassion. It allows us to step back from the intensity of the situation and observe what is happening more clearly. Silence creates space for reflection. It gives us the time to consider our words and actions before we speak, rather than reacting impulsively. When we remain silent during conflict, we also give ourselves the opportunity to listen more deeply. Often in arguments, we are so focused on defending our own perspective that we fail to truly hear what the other person is saying. Silence allows us to listen not just to the words being spoken, but also to the emotions and needs behind those words. It creates an opening for empathy and understanding. This is not to say that we should avoid speaking up in conflict altogether. There are times when it is important to express our thoughts and feelings, but silence gives us the chance to do so mindfully, with compassion and awareness, rather than out of anger or ego. It allows us to respond rather than react, to communicate in a way that fosters connection rather than division. There's a story in the Buddhist tradition about a monk who was known for his calm demeanor. One day, another monk came to him, angry and accusing him of a wrongdoing. Instead of defending himself, the calm monk remained silent. He listened patiently as the other monk vented his frustrations. Once the other monk had finished speaking, the calm monk quietly asked, "What would you like me to do to make this right?" This simple act of silence diffused the situation. By not reacting defensively, the calm monk created space for resolution. The angry monk, seeing that his accusations were met with compassion rather than resistance, softened. In the end, the conflict was resolved peacefully, without the need for harsh words or further escalation. This story illustrates the power of silence in conflict. When we choose silence, we create space for understanding and resolution. We step out of the cycle of aggression and defensiveness and into a place of mindfulness and compassion. When we witness the suffering of others, our first instinct is often to offer words of comfort. We want to say something that will make the person feel better, to offer advice or reassurance. But sometimes, words are not what is needed. Sometimes, the most compassionate thing we can do is to remain silent. In Buddhist teachings, compassion is not about fixing someone else's pain. It is about being fully present with it, without trying to change or control the situation. Silence, in the presence of suffering, is a way of holding space for the other person's experience. It is a way of offering our presence without imposing our own ideas or judgments. When we remain silent, we allow the other person to fully express their emotions. We give them the space to grieve, to feel their pain, without interrupting or trying to take it away. This kind of silence is not passive. It is an active form of empathy. It says, I am here with you. I see your pain. I am holding space for you. In moments of personal suffering, silence can be a powerful tool for self-compassion. Instead of turning outward for distraction or comfort, we can turn inward, embracing the silence and allowing ourselves to fully experience our pain. This kind of silence is not about wallowing in suffering, but about accepting it as a natural part of life. In Buddhist practice, silence during personal suffering is a way of cultivating mindfulness. It allows us to observe our pain without becoming attached to it. We can see it clearly, without judgment, and in doing so, we begin to transform it. This silence is also a way of showing ourselves kindness. Instead of criticizing ourselves for our pain or trying to push it away, we sit with it and allow it to teach us. In silence, we can explore the nature of our suffering without becoming overwhelmed by it. We can ask ourselves, what is the root of this pain? What is it trying to show me? How can I grow from this experience? In the stillness, we begin to see that suffering is not something to be feared or avoided. It is an inevitable part of the human experience, and, when embraced with mindfulness and compassion, it becomes a source of wisdom and growth. As the Buddha taught, suffering is one of the Four Noble Truths. It is part of the fabric of life. But it is also through suffering that we can find our way to liberation. By remaining silent during our own suffering, we create space for healing. We allow ourselves to feel without being consumed by our emotions. This silence fosters self-compassion, reminding us that it is okay to feel pain and that we are not alone in our suffering. In fact, every living being experiences suffering in some form, and by embracing this truth, we become more connected to others in our shared humanity. There is a story in Buddhist tradition about a woman named Kisa Gotami. She was devastated after losing her child and sought the Buddha to help her find peace. The Buddha told her to bring him a mustard seed from a house where no one had experienced death. Kisa Gotami went from house to house, but she could not find a single home untouched by loss. Through her journey, she came to understand that suffering is a universal experience. This realization brought her peace. She learned to sit with her grief in silence, accepting it as part of life rather than something to be resisted. In her silent contemplation, she found wisdom, realizing that her suffering connected her to the rest of humanity. It was in the stillness that she was able to transform her pain into understanding. Silence, in this way, is a form of acceptance. It allows us to make peace with our suffering, to see it as part of our journey, and to cultivate the strength and resilience to move forward. In silence, we find not only healing, but also a deeper connection to the world around us. As we have explored, silence is not just the absence of sound. It is a powerful tool for transformation in various situations. Whether we are dealing with anger, conflict, gossip, the suffering of others, or our own personal pain, silence offers us a way to navigate these experiences with mindfulness and compassion. It creates space for reflection, understanding, and healing. It allows us to step back from the chaos of the world and connect with our deeper selves. In Buddhist teachings, silence is often seen as a doorway to enlightenment. It is through quieting the mind and turning inward that we can begin to see the true nature of reality. Silence allows us to break free from the noise of our ego, our desires, and our attachments, and it opens us up to the wisdom that lies within. In practicing silence, we are not just avoiding speaking, we are cultivating mindfulness. We are learning to observe our thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. We are developing the capacity to respond to the world with compassion, rather than reacting out of anger, fear, or ego. This is the essence of Buddhist practice, to live mindfully, to cultivate compassion, and to seek wisdom in every moment. Incorporating silence into our daily lives, can be a powerful practice for personal transformation. It doesn't require a grand gesture or a radical change in lifestyle. Rather, it's about finding small moments of silence throughout the day. Moments where we can pause, reflect, and breathe. These moments of stillness allow us to reconnect with ourselves and the present moment. For example, you might choose to practice silence during your morning meditation, or you might take a few moments of silence before a difficult conversation. You might practice silence in moments of stress or frustration, allowing yourself to step back and reflect before reacting. These small acts of silence can have a profound impact on your peace of mind and your relationships with others. In today's fast-paced world, where we are constantly bombarded with noise and distractions, silence can be a radical act of self-care. It is a way of reclaiming your mental space, of tuning out the external noise and tuning into your inner wisdom. Silence allows you to cultivate a deeper sense of mindfulness, helping you to stay grounded in the present moment and to navigate life's challenges with greater ease and clarity. Ultimately, silence is a tool for spiritual growth. It is through silence that we can access the deeper truths of our being and the universe. In Buddhist practice, silence is often used as a way to quiet the mind and open the heart. It is a way to transcend the limitations of thought and ego and to experience the interconnectedness of all life. When we embrace silence, we begin to see the world more clearly. We become more attuned to the subtleties of our own thoughts and emotions, as well as the thoughts and emotions of others. We develop a deeper sense of empathy, compassion, and understanding. Silence allows us to step out of the cycle of reaction and judgment and into a place of mindful awareness. In this space of silence, we can experience the present moment fully. We can let go of the past and the future and simply be with what is. This is the essence of mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in each moment without attachment or aversion. Through silence, we can cultivate this awareness, allowing it to permeate every aspect of our lives. As we conclude this exploration of silence in Buddhist teachings, it is important to remember that silence is not an end in itself. Rather, it is a means to an end, a tool for cultivating mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. Silence creates the space for transformation, but it is what we do within that silence that truly matters. In moments of anger, silence allows us to reflect and choose a more mindful response. In the face of gossip, silence helps us refrain from harmful speech. During conflict, silence gives us the opportunity to listen deeply and respond with compassion. When witnessing suffering, silence allows us to offer our presence without imposing our own agenda. And in our own moments of suffering, silence helps us cultivate self-compassion and acceptance. In each of these situations, silence is a doorway to deeper understanding and growth. It is a practice that can transform not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us. By embracing silence, we create a more peaceful and compassionate world, one moment of mindfulness at a time. May we all find the courage to embrace silence in the moments that matter most, and may we use that silence to foster greater wisdom, compassion, and peace within ourselves and in the world.